Breakfast is the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. Ever.
Why?
You should wake up and you should stay hungry for hours and hours and hours until you've made some money or done something of note or been to the gym or progressed in some way so you think, I deserve this.
You deserve this.
There is something to that. Like when you're in a fasted state, I'm pretty sure your cortisol levels are higher. It's kind of like your brain is thinking like, hey, I gotta go do something. It does increase your motivation, I would say. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Man vs. World. We are on episode number, 18? Look at us going along here. Man, it really just creeps up there pretty quickly, doesn't it?
We'll catch up to Joe Rogan in no time.
Yeah, we'll catch him pretty quick, I'm sure. I was just listening to our intro, our theme there, and I know a lot of people comment on it. They like it. We actually just had one guy who said they wanted to get it as their cell phone ring, or what is it, alarm or cell phone ring? Alarm. Okay. And what we should do is we should have it where it's like we should post the file and let you guys like record lyrics over it or something like that. We gotta have some fan renditions of it. I think that'd be pretty fun.
We should just get some guys to record it live, I bet you there's some guys out there who could record it for us.
Yeah, and people always ask who did it. It was my buddy Brian Hegney, known as Now That I Am. You can find him on Spotify. He's got some really great stuff.
Good stuff, man. I love that.
What do we have today?
So today, guys, we're talking about how to embrace discomfort, neurochemical spirituality, and so we're going to comment on some recent silliness from the anti-work movement. But before all of that, I want to talk about this clip I found of Cobra Tate, who thinks apparently that breakfast is an abomination to society.
Interesting. Okay, Cobra Tate. As soon as it's Cobra, it's going to be good.
What's a worst way to start your morning?
Breakfast.
First.
I think that breakfast is the worst thing that's ever happened to humanity. Ever.
Why?
It's terrible. You're gonna wake up and just eat a bunch of food. You haven't had to do any work. You haven't had to hunt for that food, kill that food. You haven't made any money. You've done nothing of conquest. Nothing conquest orientated since you've woken up, and you're just gonna sit there and stuff your face. I think it's undeserved. I think when people wake up and the first thing they do is put food in their mouths, I think it's a bad mental model to approach today with. I think you should wake up and you should stay hungry. You should stay hungry for a long time. Why not? We ain't gonna die. You can go weeks without food. You should wake up and you should stay hungry for hours and hours and hours until you've made some money or done something of note or been to the gym or progressed in some way so you think, I deserve something.
You deserve this.
I kind of agree with him, but not for those reasons.
Okay.
I would say that there is like a psychological component to it. Like, for me, like if I don't eat breakfast, I just focus better. Bottom line, if as soon as I put food in my body, there's just gonna be an energy dip for a little while afterward. Even if it's like keto, even if it's just like all meat, I still notice an energy dip. When I'm like in a fasted state, my mind can buzz for quite a while. And so it's like the worst thing for like focus and energy and motivation is carbs for me. Like it just turns me into like a sloth. And so the typical breakfast, like the stereotypical like pancakes, cereal, toast, all that kind of stuff, man, I mean, like that makes sense if you're about to get up and go work on a farm all day, 100%. And I think that's where a lot of that kind of stuff came from, is like you would do all that, you'd go work on the farm all day, maybe you'd have a slight snack or something in the middle, but then you'd have a big dinner in the evening. And if you're doing physical labor all day, or like you're an endurance athlete, by all means eat your pancakes, have your breakfast, that sort of thing. But if you're someone like me who sits in front of a computer most of the day, you're not doing anything to really help yourself by having breakfast. You're just making it more likely that you're going to eat more calories throughout the day, and then you're probably going to get fatter. So I mean, like, this is why it's no secret that intermittent fasting is like one of the most popular and effective like methods for weight management. And so, the easiest way to do that is just don't eat when you wake up, because usually you're not even that hungry anyway. That's what I think. So I think Cobra Tate's right. And yeah, maybe that like there is something to that. Like when you're in a fasted state, I'm pretty sure your cortisol levels are higher. It's kind of like your brain is thinking like, hey, I gotta go do something, right? That's why I'm not eating. It's because I haven't gotten my food yet. I haven't hunted it down. I haven't like earned it on some level. So it does increase your motivation, I would say. There's got to be, my own experience, I think, proves that to myself at least.
Okay, I agree with both of you guys, but for different reason. Okay, so
Okay.
Cobra's right, you're right. My reasoning for not eating breakfast, like it's about 11 a.m. right now, I haven't eaten yet, is much dumber than both of yours, okay? My reason is that I'm just too lazy to make multiple meals for myself every day and do the dishes multiple times every day. And I discovered if you just eat one massive meal, right? Like around 1 or 2 or so, you don't get hungry. You enjoy it more. You fill yourself up, and then you're good. And you only have to do dishes once. So that's why I like to do it. It's more out of laziness, I guess. But,
How long does it affect your energy at all doing that? Because I've tried OMAD and stuff like that, and it's just like I start to dip. Like if I have it in the evening, then by the 3, 4, whatever, I'm starting to drag a bit, especially if I'm training, kind of heavier. But if I have it at like 1 or 2, I'm probably going to be shot for the next like couple of hours. I'm not going to be able to do any like real thinking work.
Maybe it's a insulin tolerance / age thing. I'm not sure what the reason is, but I can stuff my face full of as many carbs as I want, and I feel fine. So I take advantage of that.
That stuff does change, like as you age. Like like I can't drink the way I used to. I used to be able to in college and stuff. I would like a normal night for me, since I'm a big dude, would be like 10 plus drinks.
Right.
Like now, I'm feeling 3 or 4 for sure.
Yeah.
So it's like maybe there is an age thing, or I'm just a pussy now. I'm not really sure what it is, but.
Well, there we go. I guess it's confirmed. High value men don't eat breakfast. If you eat a breakfast, you're just, come on, man. What are you doing? What are you doing?
That's
no.
right.
But anyways, this next clip I wanted to talk about here, I ran across this guy who he wants to manage his time better, but he doesn't have any more time to manage. And so he kind of discovered a method that I think, we've talked about before in the past as well, but this is him discovering it for the first time.
All right.
I wake up at 9:30 and drive to work by 10 a.m. I'd then work a 10-hour shift, head to the gym on the way home, eat a quick bite, and then start studying at like 10 p.m. I'd go until about 2 a.m. or something before just passing out from pure exhaustion. And let me tell you, this absolutely sucked. I'd be totally blasted after work. My mental battery was depleted, so my focus was shot, and I could never finish studying. And I remember thinking, geez, I wish I had like 5 more hours every single day so I could actually get through my studies. But that wouldn't actually work either, because contrary to conventional thinking, I believe our most valuable resource is actually not time, it's focus. If I can't even read a paragraph because I'm running on E, hallucinating after a long workday, then it doesn't even matter if I have 5 more hours or 500 more hours. My battery is fried. But then I had this crazy idea. What if I moved this study block from here to here? So I was studying when my battery was actually full.
Such a crazy idea.
Such a simple idea, but I never thought about it that way before. I always assumed that as long as I scheduled in time to study during the day, I was good. But I didn't take into account my fluctuating focus. So to maximize focus, I wake up and do the most intense studying before I even go to work. And as my energy levels drop throughout the day, I'll do less rigorous studying in the pockets of time I can find at work.
Look at this. I think you just watched my Man of Action series I put out years ago. No, I didn't even come up with this. This is something that's like been known since like for forever. It's like get up early, like the people who are really trying to like kick ass, they get up early. Everyone has associated that idea, like has heard of that idea of like, the real go-getters, they're up before the sun, that kind of thing. And the reason for that is because of this, especially once you have kids, but like even if you don't have kids, all right, like regular social interaction happens on certain times of the day. Like, that's when your work hours are, that's when your meetings are, that's when you're doing all that kind of stuff. And so it's like, okay, well, all that drains energy, like you were saying. And so just move your deep focus work to the morning. That's it, and it's a big, wonderful thing. I love it when people they phrase these like common wisdom things as like groundbreaking new insight, crazy. But maybe he did come up with it all on his own in a vacuum. Power to him, because it is a great insight. It's very, very useful. Anyone who has a 9 to 5 who's trying to really build something, I would highly recommend them shifting their schedule. It's like when you get home from work, try to have it so that you can just pass out. Okay. Obviously it can't be like that if you've got kids, family, that like you should be going to bed right after your kids kind of thing. And then you get all that extra time, forget your time needed watching Netflix and stuff like that. You don't need that crap. Like the more I think about it, the more I'm just so mad that I've been sold on the idea of like needing your goofy ass downtime where you just consume shit that doesn't improve your life. You don't even connect with people. You're just like, oh, I need my zombie time. It's like, you don't need that. Okay. You can just go to sleep and you get up and you can like work on things that actually like matter to you. So yeah, do that. But I would almost disagree. Like I agree with him that like, okay, you got to manage your time. That's one piece. Another thing is to manage your focus, which is another piece. But really, when you're saying managing your focus, what does that mean? Okay. What I think that really means is managing your neurochemicals. And when you expand your focus into neurochemicals, it actually gives you even more insight, because then the question becomes, it's not just like, all right, how am I going to use my time? How am I, like, what order am I going to do, my work so that it matches my energy and focus levels? It becomes like, what am I spending my neurochemicals on? Where am I blasting it off into the gutter? And then where am I actually planting it, like a seed that will return greater investment in the future? And so this, I think, is the most powerful way to like view your work, view your energy and that sort of thing, is constantly thinking about, what are my neurochemicals doing? So, the idea of a dopamine detox is something that I talk about all the time here. And it's the same sort of thing. It's like, if you are letting yourself anytime your brain gets captured in something, okay, that's almost always some kind of dopamine, okay, almost always. And the more easily you slip into the activity, usually the higher dopamine it is. And this is like not counting sort of like mindless things you have to do, like driving. Like, yeah, you can get into the zone while driving or whatever. But I'm talking about like if you spend a bunch of time like listening to podcasts that don't really improve your life, that's you spending neurochemicals on something that only provides you pleasure in the moment. And what you want is to be spending your neurochemicals on things that grow in value. So, for example, like it's not even just dopamine, it's all of them. So think cortisol. Okay. If you invest your cortisol, meaning your stress, your experiences of stress, like the most high leverage way that you can invest your cortisol is to invest it in removing bad habits. So say you quit something like porn. Okay. Porn, that uses a ton of dopamine. Okay. It gets your brain really hooked in. If you take it out, you're going to experience stress, discomfort, withdrawal symptoms, that sort of stuff. Big cortisol spike, okay? But if you invest that cortisol there and you take that dopamine out of porn, well, all of a sudden, not all of a sudden, over a period of reconfiguring your brain, rebooting your brain, you'll be able to invest all that dopamine somewhere else. And then it's like you get to work for free. You get free focus, free energy. And what's amazing then is that even your evenings, even when your energy is low and theoretically your focus should be low, you'll be able to start having dopamine for things that are productive. Like for me, like I'm out there like at night now because I'm into this dopamine detox now, and it's like I'm reading stuff about business, right? I'm scheming, I'm thinking, I'm doing this kind of stuff, and it's actually fun because like I've hooked my brain into it, and it doesn't even take work, it doesn't even take energy. It's just something that my brain will do automatically because I've managed the neurochemicals well. And I think this is the key. This is the key if you're really trying to get ahead as a guy, is that you have to like be the master of your neurochemicals, which means stop wasting it on shit that just doesn't work. It's just like running a business, right? Like if you want to be a successful business owner, it's like you don't want to just blow cash on things that just provide a one-time benefit. It's like you want to be taking your cash and investing it, buying assets that continue to provide value. It's the same thing with your habits. Your habits are like these big assets, all right? And some of them, they drain your resources. Some of them, they can create more resources. And so it's just about moving your energy between these things. And when you make good trades, well, then the amount of, what do we want to call it, surplus of pleasure you experience in your life.
Speaking of managing your neurochemical budget, so to speak, you tweeted out recently that atheists reduce spiritual experiences to neurochemical reactions. And you said, just because you can explain the mechanism doesn't erase the meaning. You can think of spirituality as the true pursuit of optimized brain chemistry. So I'm curious to know if you would mind expanding upon that and kind of explaining what that means, because, trying to make sense of that. What do you mean by that?
Well, so, okay, in the context of what we were just talking about, it's like you can always reduce your human experiences down to neurochemicals, because that's like the fundamental thing that determines how you feel about what happens to you, right? And you can apply that neurochemical filter to everything. Literally any conversation about human experience, we can look at it from, well, what's happening in your brain at the time. Now, when I was growing up, probably more like in my teens and stuff, it was very cool and edgy, particularly on YouTube, for like atheistic thinkers to just take this idea of spirituality and be like, spirituality's dumb. It's just a bunch of neurochemicals in your brain making you think that there's something real here. Oh, that love, it's just a chemical reaction, man. It doesn't actually mean anything. And it's like, that's not how it works. Like, you can't, just because you understand the mechanism doesn't mean that there's no meaning. Meaning is I think the heart of spirituality. Like, when we say something means something, that's you making a spiritual statement. That's you, because it's always a matter of belief, right? Like, you can't say that, like, that's the big debate between like the nihilists and the theists, right? Like, the nihilist says nothing matters, and the theist or the person of faith says, well, it does. And it's just a choice. It's a choice to believe one thing or another. And so once you decide that something means something, well, then neurochemicals, they just become the map to understanding that meaning. Like, if you think about, for example, we're both Christians. It's like living a good Christian life. Why would we want to do that? Well, because we believe it's what's best for us. Well, add the neurochemical frame to that. What does that mean? It means that, well, if we live this way, we are going to get the best distribution of pleasurable neurochemicals. That's what we believe. It's like, this will lead to the happiest, most fulfilling life. It'll bring us to the life that is closest to heaven that we can get. And that's like when we step away from that, when we pursue a different path to neurochemical pleasure, let's say the path of hedonism, that would seem on the surface to be the more direct path. It's like, why don't you just indulge in the things that give you the highest spikes of pleasure, like, drugs, free sex, like all that kind of stuff? Well, because yes, it gives you a nice spike in the beginning, but later, it doesn't really, right? It actually leads to an overall decrease. It leads to a lower quality of life. You're ultimately far less happy. And so I was talking about this, and someone was talking about, like, how does this align with altered brain chemistry of drug-induced experiences? They're saying, like, users, especially in the 60s, would argue that they open the mind to reality of the spiritual, which is typically hidden from us. There are arguments that mankind's first spiritual experiences came from mushrooms. And then he also went to say, if we believe that God is the God of neurochemistry, is the intersection of artificial chemical reactions in the brain and spiritual experience really that separate? I say this as someone who has never had an objective spiritual experience, only intellectual spirituality. So it's a really good question. And, obviously I don't know where the origins of spirituality came. I don't know what level psychotropic drugs played on the evolution of spirituality in humans. I'm sure some, there seems to be definitely some evidence that yes, hallucinogenic drugs and stuff like that, they definitely have influenced spirituality and religion like all over the globe in all different kinds of traditions, maybe even in Christianity. It's not really clear. It's not like there's not definitive proof around it. But I can say I've had both kinds of experiences. I've had it's like, it's silly to call it, but like the stereotypical experience of merging with the universe. I've had that. And that was not drug induced. That was just something that happened to me in the middle of the night one time. And it was insane. It was the craziest thing I've ever experienced. I don't know why it happened, but it did. And I've had other kind of very profound spiritual experiences, not on drugs. But then I have actually experienced, mushrooms, mushroom trip. And like, that was also extremely wild, extremely, out there. And what I can say is like, there is a significant difference between them in that it's like what I responded to this guy was, it's like the difference between hiring actors to act out an exciting life around you. Like imagine if you like paid 30 people, like you had the money and you paid 30 people to like be your best friends and best family and to like take you on the best day ever. Okay. You could probably do that and you might even have some fun doing it. Okay. But is that real? Okay, what does that ultimately mean to you? This is where we come back to meaning, and the meaning of that would be less. It would be like an amusement park ride. But like, yeah, it'd be kind of fun, but where does it take you, right? And so, authentic spiritual experience, the kind that comes outside of, the artificial induction of drugs, it just holds more weight, and ultimately that weight of meaning, that leads to better neurochemicals along the way. So it's like, say you have a authentic spiritual experience, okay? Maybe in the moment, it's not as profound as like a mushroom or acid trip, okay? Lower neurochemical activation, except for, the merging of the universe thing I did, that was crazy as anything I've ever done. But the more regular spiritual experiences, nowhere near as intense. So natural experience, maybe it's smaller blip neurochemically in the moment. But the meaning of like, well, how does that change the way I think about things? How does that change the way I view other people? How does that change the way I love myself and my loved ones or even everyone else in the world, okay? That alteration then has a cascade effect through time that the mushroom trip, I would argue, or the acid trip tends to not have. Now, I can't say that that's always the case. I had a really good friend of mine who was, he became a pretty hardcore atheist, almost an obnoxious atheist. And then he did acid. He did a number of, tripped a bunch of different things. And now he's a theist again. It was like those things actually convinced him that God did exist. So, and that has profoundly impacted his life. And so it's just like, drugs can cause a spiritual experience, but the experience you have on drugs is not necessarily spiritual, is my take on it. And so it's like, it's just like, that's not the path to go for if that's really what you want. If it happens through happenstance, then great. But I think we have so many people today, especially in the hallucinogenic communities, who are pitching hallucinogens basically as the new religion. I know it's become very trendy, like out in in California, like the Tech Bro Center. What was it, the book? It was the guy who wrote the book on flow, and then he wrote another book basically just about that whole environment over in like the Silicon Valley types. They're all just going to Burning Man and doing drugs together, and like that's kind of like where they're getting their new religion. And so to me, that's slippery. Okay, I don't know where that's going to take you. If if you want to dive into something very entertaining, then you should check out Alex Jones's take on all the
DMT elves,
like the DMT elves and everything like that. Like if you haven't seen that, that's some of the best stuff that's ever been on the internet as far as like interesting. So definitely check out the DMT elves and have Alex Jones. But yeah, I don't even know what we've tangented hard now. Does that?
I'm sorry to interrupt this podcast. I'm getting word that we have breaking news. Roe v. Wade has just been overturned. And do we have an update? Yeah, we got an update from the beep. Can we go to that real quick?
Roe v. Wade has been overturned, turning our country into a terrifying Handmaid's Tale scenario where women are not guaranteed the right to kill their babies. Here are 5 frightening consequences of this development. 1. Women who have sex may be forced to experience motherhood, one of the most joyful and rewarding adventures a woman can have in life. Truly a dystopian nightmare. 2. Some women will have to drive an hour or 2 to cross state lines in order to murder their young, which is incredibly inconvenient. 3. Abortion doctors will be forced to become one of those doctors who help people, or they may have to learn to code. 4. More black babies will be born, erasing the lasting racist legacy of Planned Parenthood founder Margaret Sanger. This is not what she would have wanted. 5. Every woman in the country will be issued a Handmaid's Tale outfit and be forced to bear Mike Pence's children. We hope you look good in red, ladies. Stay tuned to the Babylon Bee for future development.
Oh, okay.
You get the idea.
So that's interesting. Well, okay. On one hand, it's like I don't like to be flipping around the abortion conversation because it's a heavy one, dude. It's a big one. And like I know people who have had them and they're traumatic. It's like a lot of people regret them specifically, which is part of the reason why, this is an issue. And so it's like when you laugh about it, I know part of them is like, ooh, it like just brings up something really, really sad and painful. It's a tough kind of scenario. And the flippance kind of thing is basically reserved for people who have never been put in that situation. Like, I gotta think about it. It's like me and my shittiest self, like my late teens, early 20s. Like, what would I have done if I knocked up a girl, right? Like, I probably would have, I don't know what I would have done, right? I would like to think that I would have, like, gone through and supported the woman if she wanted to do it. I don't think I would have ever pressured her to have the abortion because I've always been pro-life. But if she was really pushing for it, how hard would I fight back, right? Like, how hard would I have been like, come on, no, you really got to do it. I'll take care of the baby if I need to. It's just like, it's a tough thing. But at the same time, the big thing that I see that's just so messed up in the whole conversation about it is that like both sides are talking past each other. Like the left refuses to acknowledge the point that like that's a life. That is a life. Even if it's not fully formed, it's still a life. Okay? Like you have to pick at some point where the life begins. And the only place, as far as I can tell, that makes any sense is that the life begins at conception. Okay? Now, plenty of people disagree. Fine. Let's say life only begins once the heart starts beating. Okay? If that's really how you want to play it, that's fine. But still, that doesn't even make sense. That's like the idea of like, if you're...
Isn't that like 8 weeks later, by the way?
Something like that. I mean, it's like
it's not relevant to the conversation. It's still the majority of abortions that are taking place, it's after that point anyway, I would assume, maybe I'm mistaken, but
right. And so it's like then the conversation just gets stupid. They're like, oh well, you want these people to be born, but then you don't want to help them, and it's just like it just starts getting dumb with like into stuff that's not even true or accurate or anything. What I want to have is a real conversation with people who want abortion about whether it's okay to kill people who are inconvenient to us. Because that's what it is. And like, that's not like an unheard of conversation. Like that's what the whole death penalty is in a lot of ways. It's like, hey, this person's so bad. They're such a pain in the ass. They did such, they're such a problem. We should probably just kill them. Right? And I mean, there's at least a conversation to be had around that. And the thing is, like, they don't want to do it like that. They want to completely reframe the argument because that's not a comfortable conversation to have. No one wants to actually talk about, like, is it okay to end the life if it's inconvenient enough? And honestly, I would have a lot of respect for someone who is willing to look at it from that perspective and willing to talk about it from that perspective. But that's not what it is. It's just like all of these, like, logical fallacies and, basically entirely logical fallacies. And then, you know, the part who is very pro-life, they just start getting callous, and they generally, I don't know. So, okay. It's easy when you're already brought up in a culture where, like, you're in a situation where, okay, no one's ever been sexually interested in you. Okay. If you're just like an ugly, unpleasant person who's just prude and nerdy, and you've never had the opportunity to have sex, it's real easy for you to say, yeah, well, you just shouldn't have sex then. You know, it's just like, it's your fault. And it's like, well, okay, if you had the opportunity, you probably, you know, you wouldn't be speaking so casually about that, right? Like if you were raised in maybe a non-Christian household where sex was celebrated as this thing you should do even before marriage, and utilize contraception and all this kind of stuff. Like the thing about contraception, like birth control pill, condoms, whatever, they don't have 100% efficacy rating. Okay. They're like, you know, somewhere between like 96, 95 to like 98%. So that means some percentage of people having sex, even using contraception, conceive. Okay. So it's like, it's going to happen. It's going to come up. And so it's like, if the conversation's going to go anywhere, people got to really see both sides of it. Because I think, you know, if you meet someone in a place where they're actually willing to look at both sides, you know, they're willing to look at the hardship at both sides, at the hardship of like, oh shoot, you're a teenage girl, you just got knocked up, and like, what are you going to do? What are the pressures on you? What kind of judgments are going to come your way? What's going to like happen to your life? You know, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's serious. Okay. Have compassion toward that person, right? Like if the pro-life side focused more on the solution, like more on actually targeting the pain points that people who want abortions are experiencing, I think that it'd be a much stronger case, being like, instead of just being like, babies shouldn't be killed. It's like, I agree with you. But like, also, let's talk about what do we do for the people who are not brought up in a culture or an environment where managing their sexuality in a chaste way, in a productive way, wasn't really taught to them. Okay. It's like, how are we going to help those people transition into this good life, this better life? And, you know, I know those programs exist and all that sort of stuff, but they're not included in it. It's just the whole thing, like both sides are marketing terribly, I think. It's like the conservative side's just like, hey, you guys are murderers. And then the pro-choice side is just like, it's not murder. It's just like kind of murder, but like, you know, it's like, it's mostly just like my body, my choice, but like that body doesn't get a choice. I don't know, just, you know, I'm going to wear a pussy hat and you're just going to listen to me.
Women's rights, unless the baby is a female, in which case it doesn't have a gender at all, we shouldn't label it. And under those circumstances, you know, then it's not about women's rights anymore. But you know what's interesting is the good guys, you nailed it. Like, this is not, they even said it in this little like parody thing. Okay, what does this do really? What does overturning Roe v. Wade do? It puts it to the states, right? So this is where the good guys go wrong. They get a little victory in the law, and then they go about their day and they go about their business. What does this actually solve? Well, it's a step, but is meth illegal? Yeah. Do people still do meth? Yes. Are guns illegal in Australia? Yeah. Do people still kill each other with knives? Yeah, it doesn't solve the issue when you just make it a matter of law. This is a matter of people's hearts and people's hearts needing to change ultimately. And when you just rely on law and just making things illegal, I agree that, you know, it should probably be a states thing. But that's not going to solve the problem for pro-life people. And when pro-life people say, you know, this is all we got to do, let's pack our bags and go home, it's like, well, are you really solving the problem? Because they're not looking at the other side of this. They're not looking at the pain points of the other people, and they're not helping those people through those painful situations. We're not doing anything to combat the huge bureaucracy that goes on with regards to adoption centers, you know, because there's a massive line of people waiting to adopt kids.
Yeah, it's a pain. It's like, I know some people in my life who are trying to adopt. It is a pain in the ass, and it is absurdly expensive.
Yeah.
Why? We should be like, you know, don't just hand babies away to anyone. Like, you know, make sure that they are properly vetted, you know. But my goodness, like make it easier. Like that, put money into that, right? Like it can't just be about, yeah, I mean, there is definitely, I think, a valid criticism of the right of where it's like, as long as the baby isn't being killed, there is not enough concern for that child's life. I would agree with that to some extent. I think they probably care more than the left does in a lot of ways, but that's where you'd have to start like building up points and counterpoints and that sort of thing. I don't really feel like doing that right now. So it's just like...
Yeah, and I don't make any claim to know how to do that. Like, how do we change people's hearts, Well, having honest conversations like this one is one way to do it, And sure, it might not reach all of the right people, but enough people do that, and eventually it starts to take over. But the problem becomes when you say, "Yay, we did it. We solved the problem," and then you go back to your job and you don't do anything further than that.
Well, you got to actually name the frickin' problem. The real problem are issues around sexuality and family. That's what it is. Is like people like that's the solution to the sexual issue. Is like learning how to, one, for young people, manage their sexuality. Okay. I was never taught that. That's why I became a porn addict. Okay. I get it. I was given no guidance. I was told this is a sin, and if you die before you go to confession, and this sin is on your heart, you'll probably go to hell. I was like, shit. I just jerked off like this morning. Right. And I was just like, well, you're not giving me any option. I feel like this unbelievable energy coursing through me. What the heck am I supposed to do with it? There's porn sitting right there on my computer. Like, you going to help me with this? Or he's like, nope, not going to help you at all. You're just not allowed to do it, or you go to hell. And it's like, that doesn't work. That's not going to work in today's. There has to be deeper solutions, which is part of the reason why I've gotten so heavily invested in this kind of work. And like we gotta celebrate family. We gotta make families healthy, strong again. And like so much of our society, especially coming from the left, is about really kind of getting away from the family, like as much as possible. They want the family to be the state. They want daddy to be the state. This is actually something I tweeted the other day. It's like the reason why the powers that be sided with the left and feminism. The reason they did that is because they want to be daddy. They want to be the breadwinner. They want to get all the respect. They want to have all the power. They want to make all the decisions. Okay, because that's what's best for their bottom line. If they can be daddy, but they can't be daddy if actual daddy is at home, with his principles, with his balls, and with his guns. Okay, so it's like there's a reason why so much of our society, particularly the powerful ones at the top, have sided against the family, because the family limits their power, right? And it also produces strong men who are willing to compete, who are willing to strive, who are willing to create, which means ingenuity, which means competition, which means that like their position of the elite's power at the top is not as solid because there's other people climbing the ranks trying to constantly, play the game, shift the game, become disruptors in society, producing new ways to do things, ideally better ways to do things. And if you just some monolithic institution who wants to be able to print money indefinitely, well, why would you want that, right? So it's like, it all comes back to the family. It all comes back to sexuality. It all comes back to like, what are your morals? What are your values? And if we can fix that, then, that's how we solve it as a society. That's the only way. This kind of legislation stuff, it's just a thing for people to fight about on Twitter, I think.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. Alrighty. Timothy Regal recently tweeted this out, and it really resonated with me. He says, I actually bury people for a living, and I see far too many people who wait until retirement to quote-unquote live. Then by the time they're ready, their bodies have failed them. Don't take time for granted. Don't take your body for granted. And, it's kind of interesting because I stumbled across this post from the anti-work subreddit. And, it's a funny moment in the show, but it's sad to know that there's a whole group of people who are real life Stanleys who, from the time that they're young and the time they start working, they're just counting down the days until retirement. And so I'm kind of curious, what's your take on retirement, Mark, and what role should that play for people?
I just like almost did a double take here. I was looking at this meme in the anti-work Reddit. It's like, been looking forward to this day since I was 18 years old. You know, Stanley, when he retires. And then I saw there's 2 million people who are subscribed to the anti-work subreddit. What on earth? Oh my God.
Take that back. It's not thousands, it's millions.
Oh man. If I could figure out how to advertise, like talk to Alexander, the guy who runs NoFap, be like, hey man, we gotta follow what the anti-work people are doing because they are blowing up. Jeez. Yeah, it's sad. Like, I think that when you're really living, okay, you've got your relationships, okay? But you can't do your relationships all day, every day, okay? You're just going to get sick of the people, and there's really not that much, like, it's just going to turn to idle chatter at some point. What you need is something to orient your life around, and that is work, okay? Now, work in a healthy lifestyle actually can be quite enjoyable. It's like it's the honest way to get pleasurable neurochemicals from your brain. You have anticipation, you have some stress involved, but then you get a payoff. You know, whether it's the rewards of a job well done, it's the good work that you do, it's the pay you receive, that sort of thing. Ideally, work shouldn't be something you ever stop doing. Like, if you retire, like me, in my opinion, retiring well doesn't mean that you are no longer working. It just means that you've stopped working with money as one of the primary focuses. It means that you have hopefully put yourself in enough of a position financially where you can turn your work toward other things, maybe toward philanthropy, maybe toward caring for your family better, right? Like, my mom, she and my dad, they help watch my daughter a lot. And that's work, right? Like, it's not all fun and games. Like, sometimes she's quite a handful and she's tiring and this kind of thing, but they get fulfillment out of it. They actually love it, right? They get something from it. And so it's like, that's what retirement should be. It just should be a shift in work. Like, what these people want is like, okay, let me ask you this, Pete. What do you think if you're going to take the avatar of the anti-work subreddit? Okay, take all the users, combine them into an average person.
Right.
Say they didn't have to work anymore. What do you think they would do, Pete?
Well, that's a great question, because I think the reason why they may feel this way to begin with, why they're looking forward to retirement so much, is because work is what they view as, their trudge. And so in order to, cope with the fact that they're trudging through most of their life, their time off is probably spent doing a variety of distractions and a variety of things that are not actually, giving them any sort of value to the real life. So if they had all the time off in the world, I can't imagine it'd be really anything else than doing nothing of particular value, sitting on Netflix, doing that kind of stuff. I mean, what do you think?
That's what I think. I just think that they bought the lie. This thing that I've been like railing against like these past few episodes, just like, yeah, your life isn't meant to be just about escape. And that's what I thought. That's how I engineered my life. It's like, okay, I got my business like, in a good enough spot. I only need to put in a few hours a day, and then I can just like play video games. And I get to like, because that's what you do, right? Like, that's how I lived my life. It's like, okay, I trudge through work or I trudge through school. I get my shit together. I do my chores, and then I get to play video games, and then I get to watch porn, and then I get to like watch TV. And like, that's what I live for. And that's what our society is today. It's like you trudge through your shit, then you get your little, dopamine sandwich at the end of the day. And it's just, dopamine is supposed to be tied to activities that give you serotonin or oxytocin, okay? But the way it's today is like you just get dopamine and nothing else. So like dopamine, it's like this anticipation neurochemical. It means like you're looking forward to some good thing. And ideally, when you get that good thing, say it's like work related, then it should give you a sense of status increase, a boost to your sense of status, self-worth, etc. That's serotonin. Or you put the work in and then you get a boost of oxytocin. That's like the connection neurochemical. That's like what my parents feel when they do the work of watching my daughter. They get that feeling of love and connection with her. But when you're just doing the way modern society has it, is you're getting this dopamine, watching your Netflix, playing your video games, watching your porn, watching your sports, whatever it is. You get the dopamine, but then there's nothing. And that's why everybody's on antidepressants. That's why. Yep. Because their dopamine is not plugged into something that provides them with serotonin, so they have to take artificial serotonin. And it's nuts. It's absurd. This is the way we live, and it's horrible.
Well, to kind of, I guess, wash your hands of the anti-work subreddit, love you guys, but we're
I gotta dig in here. I gotta understand. I gotta spend some time in there at some point. I will do it.
We should, yeah. It's sad. I want to help those guys, but taking a little trip over to the self-improvement subreddit, we have an interesting question here that I saw. It says, "How do I be more uncomfortable?" Which is an interesting question. He continues on to say, "In order to grow, I need to be more uncomfortable, and I know that. But what can I do daily that will allow me to tackle uncomfortable things in the future? I need to seek out discomfort in order to grow. What should I do first?"
Okay, so the default answer that floats around on the internet is you gotta take cold showers.
Nailed it. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Cold showers. Right. And that's not horrible advice but it's not an actual answer. Like what cold showers do, and they do it very well, is they teach you the power of delayed gratification. They make you do something that's semi-torturous. It sucks, especially if you're like not conditioned to it at all. It really sucks, especially if it's really cold water. It's horrible. But then after you get out of the shower, you feel amazing. You feel so good. Like you get massive amounts of endorphins. It's kind of like
it's like runner's high.
Never done heroin, but it's like a mini heroin hit, right? Like that's what it is. It's just this massive endorphin release, and feels good. So you're like, if I do hard things, sometimes I can feel good afterward. So that's good. But like what you really like, what this guy needs is he needs to know what he wants, right? He needs to want something. And so he needs to trade comfort and then get something back that he wants. That's how you have to do it. That's the way we're actually designed to work. We're only designed to face discomfort if we get something. Otherwise, like, why would you do it, right? And so this guy knows he wants to improve his life. Well, pick some place that you're willing to sacrifice for right now. And a lot of times guys try and jump right to the big thing. We try and jump to, I want to make $1 million, or maybe I want to like have a really hot girlfriend or something like that. And sometimes you can do that. Sometimes you can jump to that kind of stuff if you've got the clarity and things line up inside of your brain properly. But most guys, they got to start with like what is actually painful for them first. It's like, would you trade some discomfort here if you could eliminate all of this big bucket of pain over here? So for example, like maybe you are very overweight and your joints hurt and you feel insecure. How much pain does being overweight create for you? Okay. If it creates a lot of pain for you, well, would you trade some pain to get rid of that pain? That'd be a good trade, right? Find something you're willing to suffer for. That's the biggest thing. And once you find that, then you're going to be able to face discomfort. And then you just need a plan. You need an investment strategy for your comfort. That was one of the biggest things that I really got into when I first started my YouTube channel. You could go back and look at my older videos. I was always talking about this. You got to trade comfort, trade your comfort to really get the things that you want. And if you think about comfort as a resource, it's like more valuable than money. Just trade your comfort for the things that you want. You can trade comfort for just about anything in this world. And if you a little bit of thinking, you can find some things that you want, and you can probably estimate the price tag. It's like, how much would it really cost you to get in shape? How much would it really cost you to quit porn? Sometimes you don't really have the best idea. You need to try it first. But after a few attempts, you're going to have an idea of like, it's going to cost about this much discomfort at this rate in order for me to get this reward. Find a trade you're willing to make. And if you can do that, well then, hey, you got your plan.
Guys, if you haven't already, make sure you check out the last podcast where we talk about whether affirmations are BS, why dating apps are a waste of time, and why you have too many friends. But with the power of that, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.
Ooh, yep, everybody. Thanks for watching. See ya.